Hey friends, today is the first episode of a new series of Lazy GM prep videos in which I am preparing for a Tales of the Valiant Scourge of the Dragon Empire campaign. Today is our session 0 for this campaign, and over the weeks to come, we will dive into my prep for each of these sessions. This is the new campaign that I'm running for my Sunday group. We just finished our year-long Shadow Dark campaign and are eager to dive back into the world of 5e, this time using the Tales of the Valiant 5e system by Kobold Press. So it is set in the Midgard world, which is also by Kobold Press. We're kind of doing all Kobold Press for this one. The Midgard setting in the Far East in an area known as the Dragon Empire. Looks really cool. And I was wondering when my microphone banged around, it's because my cat decided to jump up on the bookcase. He's up to no good. What are you up to? You're up to no good, I can tell. Cats. This show, like all of the work of Sly Flourish, is brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of stuff, including all of the notebooks and all of the material that I put together for my campaigns like this. They also get access to a bunch of exclusive adventures, exclusive source books, tips, tricks, tools, online tools to help run role-playing games. They get access to the awesome Sly Flourish community, the Lazy DM community over on Discord, and they help me put on shows like this. To the patrons of Sly Flourish, thank you so much for your support. Cats, what are you doing? You're just looking evil. He's looking at me like he's going to do something. He's going to knock my giant Tiamat miniature over. So we have done a fair bit of prep work ahead of time. If you recall, this is actually, I said it's the first session. It's actually the first prep session for a game that we're actually running, but I have 2 previous videos available. I'm going to set up a playlist on YouTube where you can see all of these together. But I had done 2 previous sessions where I just got my head around the campaign itself and what was going on from that. So I have some notes from that we're going to dive into today. This also marks the first time that I am using Obsidian to do my campaign prep. If you're interested in my first thoughts about Obsidian, I have yet to write a Sly Flourish article about using Obsidian for campaign prep. I probably ought to write one. I wanted to wait until I had used it a while and got my hands around it and got some thoughts about how to use it, because it's not like I go right out of the gate having a good idea about how to use a new tool. I need to spend time with it. Now, I have spent a fair bit of time with Obsidian for campaign prep. And so it's probably time that I write an article. But I do have a video where I started talking, where I gave some of my first impressions about using Obsidian for campaign prep. So in the meantime, you can find a link to that in the show notes, but eventually I'm going to write a Sly Flourish article about it. We're going to take a look at what we have so far for the campaign. And we're going to talk about our session 0 and all of the things that we're doing there. We're going to go over our session 0 worksheet. I have a 1-page session 0 guide that I already gave out to my players today. I also have to get character sheets ready. And I think we're only going to have 4 players today. We're going to have 1 online and 3 in person. And we have 2 people that are out of town or 2 people that are unavailable for it of our regular 6-person group. So those, they'll jump in as they go. But largely for my session 0s, the way they play out is we talk about the campaign, we have the books in front of us, and it's a pretty relaxed session where everybody hangs out, we're going to eat lunch, and we're going to make characters. I'm going to go over the one sheet, we're going to clarify some stuff from the one sheet, and then people are going to build characters. And Tales of the Valiant does have an online character builder as part of Shard Tabletop. So there is a way for people to build characters that exports PDFs on Shard Tabletop, but I have a feeling people are going to mostly do a paper character sheet. So I'm going to have paper character sheets ready, and we will work with that. But I also want to have enough prepared that if we go beyond the session 0, build a character together, I also want to talk about the starting location. I'm really excited about the starting location for this one, and the first adventure that they're going to go on. And we might even start the first adventure today. I don't know how far we will get into the first adventure. So those are all sort of the things that I want to do for our prep today. I'm going to hop over. Well, so why don't we start by taking a look at the 1-pager. So this is a 1-pager in the 1-page format that I use for my 1-pagers, and I use for all kinds of things. Patrons of Sly Flourish get access to the actual Word template version of this, so they can take this template and create their own 1-pagers from them for their own campaigns. Pretty straightforward 2-column template of two-column template to put everything on there. I really try to get all of the material that we need for a campaign on one single page. I really try to boil everything down that we need to one page. And that's really hard to do, but that constraint really helps me focus the campaign. So it makes everything work out well. So our one-page version, I'm calling the campaign Scourge of the Dragon Empire. A small band of heroes on the outer fringes of the greatest empire of Midgard begins their journey to thwart, fleece, and subvert the tyranny of the Maharati Dragon Empire. So that is the theme. It took me some work, and if you watch the previous videos, you can watch me kind of work through what that theme is. I really like to have a clear focus for the characters at the very beginning of a campaign. And this one, this one really helps me break past a very common problem that I hear about. I heard about it from a coworker recently. She was talking about a campaign that she was in, and she mentioned that somebody else got kicked out because he was doing too much PvP. And so he got booted out of a group, and now she's taken the slot that this guy got booted out of. And she's like, what do you do about that? And I'm like, you tell people they can't do PvP. And she's like, you could just do that? I'm like, yeah, you know? So it's very interesting to me. I think some common problems that occur in RPGs are often occur because there isn't really any baseline set for the campaign and the characters before the players have already started jumping in and doing stuff. So that's why I think session zeros are so important. It's why I think it's okay to be a bit strong army in the direction that you expect a campaign to go. You're not dictating what the characters do or the total path that they take, but you're giving them a star and a direction that they're going to aim down, and you're going to go down that direction. And this one is basically like, whoever you are, wherever you've come from, your goal is to thwart, fleece, and subvert the tyranny of the Dragon Empire. Like, that's a pretty clear focus, right? Scourge of the Dragon Empire is a Tales of the Valiant campaign set in the Maharati Empire in the east of Midgard. This guide gives you a taste of the adventure to come and the guide for building your own heroes in these vast lands. So that's right up front. Then we say, what are the truths? And I think I narrowed it down to 4 truths. They're a little long, but there's 4 big things that set this campaign. And the truths are really valuable, I think, for both the GM and the player to recognize, where is this thing going? And those truths are: 9 dragons rule the Maharati Empire. 400 years ago, the ancient red dragon Maharat created a pact among neighboring dragons, an alliance forging the Maharati Empire. Today, 9 dragon lords rule over the empire, stretching thousands of miles. The dragon lords remain mostly in seclusion, leaving the Sultan to manage the empire as their titanic treasure hoards grow ever more vast. A single sultan rules as their puppet. The Dragon Lords stay out of the day-to-day activities, leaving a single sultan or sultana in charge. The current dragon-born Dread Sultan Osmir al-Stragul deposed his predecessor, the human sultana Kazmara Azbahir, who fled for her life. I could actually cut the last sentence out of that first truth without losing anything, because the second one covers the same territory. But too late now. It's already sent out. I'm not going to worry about it. The Empire rules under a strict caste system, and you're the bottom rung. The 9 Morza, the great dragon lords, reside at the top of a strict caste system. The Olmarani, the roughly 500 scaled lords, rule over cities, command armies, hold ancient strongholds, and reside over temples to the great dragon gods. The Tamarli include minor nobles, generals, mayors, ambassadors, priests, and landowners. 48 million scaled as Akinji, Ejet, Sekban, and Kobaldi form the lower ranks of the caste. At the very bottom are the Jambuka, the jackals, 14 million sentient beings of flesh and fur, not scales. And that's where the characters are generally going to be. They're going to be Jambuka at the very bottom of the cast. War is a constant enterprise. The Dragon Empire is in a state of perpetual war, leading to great conquests and occasional hideous losses. The Empire stretched its borders far enough that they must defend enormous provinces from Nuria Natal and Kandaria, and a handful of smaller kingdoms that banded together to face the Maharati. Yet the Dragon Lord's claws remain as sharp as ever. Those are our 4 truths, right? And those are the themes. We have the dragon empires. We have a puppet governor, the sultan, the single sultan. We have a very strict caste system, and we have a constant state of war. Those are the major themes of this campaign. your character in the Dragon Empire. This is where we kind of dictate some behavioral things up front to talk about what kind of characters make sense and the drives of those characters. Your character begins at the 4 of 40 Fingers Well Station. I can't wait to build that 4 of 40 Fingers. I just love saying it. In the southern reaches of the Maharati Empire, between the Dragonlord regions of Batek, Mazir, and Gizmiri. So that way we're kind of at a juncture of 3 different Dragonlords. That makes it fun. You may be a hired caravan guard, a mercenary between jobs, a shady scoundrel in hiding, or a protector of the people caught under the claws of the Empire. So you have different ways that your character could be there, but we all kind of know where they are. Your motivations include greed. One can get filthy rich skimming off the top of the great hordes of the Dragonlords. Revenge. The vast machine of the Dragonlords cost you your whole life, and it's time they paid it back. Justice. For too long, people of the Dragon Empire suffered under the tyranny of the Dragonlords. And peace. So many tens of thousands died under the scourge of the Thomari War Masters. It must end. So that way you have sort of, you know, even if they don't pick exactly these themes, they know the direction that it's going, right? It's rebellion. You know, good old Star Wars rebellion kind of thing. Like you could be fighting on behalf of the rebels, or you could be a scoundrel who's trying to figure out how to steal money and smuggle underneath the Dragon Empire. Whatever your background and motivations, you band with your fellow adventurers to thwart, fleece, and subvert the tyranny of the Dragon Empire. That's the goal, right? And that's sort of a bond that the characters share. So somebody can't build a character and say, well, I'm not interested in working with my fellow adventurers to thwart, fleece, and subvert the tyranny of the Dragon Empire. So you say, okay, that character moves on and does something else. Now make a character who does. You don't have to be quite that strong about it, but that's kind of where it goes. Character creation. PCs begin at first level using the Tales of the Valiant Player's Guide. We are only using one source book for this game, and that's the new Tales of the Valiant Player's Guide. There's enough new stuff in there that I think we can be excited. I'm hoping the players will be excited to use the stuff in there, and it solves problems of like having to pass 3 or 4 books around. With either, and I already had players who were like, well, can't I play a different species than the ones that are in here? It's like, let's just stick to the ones that are in here for now. There's plenty of species, and between the ancestries and the heritage and ancestries, you have lots of different options to customize your sort of background. And you can either use point buy or the standard array of 16, 14, 14, 13, 10, and 8. I really like the standard array that Tales of the Valiant has. There is no other bonuses. You don't have to add anything. You don't get anything from your background. You just get your ability scores all done at once. Pause for a minute. My group that I'm playing with are all very familiar with pause for a minute. During the campaign, anytime can say pause for a minute to stop the current conversations, break character, and discuss any issues. And you can use it freely to clarify the game's direction or address any concerns. So you can use pause for a minute as my version of an X card, but it's also used to say, let's stop for a minute. What's our plan as we go into this area? As our plan X, Y, or Z? And it's not really like always like, hey, I hate spiders. Please, no spiders. Can we move on from the spiders? It can be used for that, of course, but it can also be used for, hey, let's talk about our plan as players before we jump into our characters and go off and run for the races. Content lines and veils. This one had some important ones in it. This campaign includes racism and classism by evil NPCs. Good and neutral aligned characters, including your own PCs, do not hold these racist ideals. So this is because we do have an empire that has this very strict caste system that is built on those who are scaled and those who are not. So there's definitely an issue of racism in this game. And I wanted to make it very clear that the players don't follow that line. That, like, sometimes players will fall into character and they'll start talking about the scalies or whatever, and you're like, no, the characters are not racist. Like evil NPCs maybe, but good and neutral aligned characters won't be. Lines. The campaign does not include any non-consensual sexual contact or harassment, PC-initiated torture, PC-driven racism, violence towards domestic animals, violence towards children, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, death by exposure on the sea, or non-consensual PC on PC violence, theft, or betrayal. That last one is an important one because sometimes characters want to fight each other. If you want to fight another character and both of you are in on it, you can totally do so. And if you want to have a character steal from another character and the player is like, yeah, you can steal my stuff, right? But generally speaking, no PvP. Like, that's just not the kind of game I want to run. And then veils include extreme violence, slavery, torture, and consensual sexual contact are veiled off screen. Any of that kind of stuff, we fade away as those topics come up. Some of those have been on my list now for some time, but some of those are specific to this campaign because of some of the themes of the campaign that we want to be able to touch on, but I want to have like a clear line of like, look, this is stuff that exists in the world and evildoers do it, but the characters do not. those are some of the things that I wanted to kind of make very clear in our... So I think that's a pretty good Session Zero guide. I did, as I mentioned, I already sent it out to my players, and I told them along with this, if you cannot help yourself of come up with character ideas, come with 2, don't come with 1. And that way, like if you cannot help yourself but think up of characters already before you've talked to all the other players, if you have 2 that you love equally, then you can pick which one you want to do. And this is always a little messy around the table. When I've run my Session Zeros, it's always been a little messy about like people kind of pointing at one another and like, do you want to play a cleric? I could play a cleric, you know. But it usually works out. That initial conversation is kind of weird and can be a little uncomfortable as people are trying to not overstep the bounds until finally somebody says, well, I'd kind of like to play a fighter. And then I was like, yeah, okay, if you're playing a fighter, well, then I'll play this. And then it all sort of falls in line and everybody has their thing. So that is pretty cool. So that is our 1-pager and the initial thoughts. I'm going to switch over to my Obsidian sheets. I am using Obsidian for my prep here as I described. We're going to go to my Dragon Empire campaign notes. And so this one, actually these campaign notes are what was in the 1-pager. I think the 1-pager has been rewritten a little bit from this, but I also have some thoughts about other aspects of the campaign that I want to kind of dive into. And starting off with fronts, and generally speaking, you shouldn't worry too much about the fronts this early in a campaign. So I probably don't need to worry about this quite yet, but I definitely need to have like, who are the starting NPCs that the characters are going to get involved in? Who are the group patrons that they might touch on? But the bigger fronts, I'm not so sure. But I do have some ideas because I did have this extra time. The regional manager, but I wanted to, so we have like so there's a commander of the region. And let's see, if we think about the hierarchy, who is in charge of this area? One of the things I like about this idea is that the 4 or 40 fingers is outside of the control of the Dragon Empire, kind of. That there actually is somebody in charge of it, but they're kind of low ranking and they're not very effective. So I think there's a Timilari, which includes minor nobles, generals, mayors, ambassadors, priests, and landowners. So there's a Timilari, how do you spell that? Timarli, Tamarli. There's a Tamarli lord over the region who answers to a Armanli, a scaled lord, who's probably a dragonborn. So we can have like these, and the Tamarli lord, probably a kobold, although you have the kobaldi, but probably probably more than a kobaldi. And I think like the Tamarli lord's nephew actually operates at the 440 fingers and is completely corrupt and weak. So now you have this kind of fun layers of hierarchy that probably aren't going to come into play for some time. But it does mean that we want to have one NPC, and when we start digging into our prep, we're going to actually have like one NPC who's a kobold nephew, who's a kobaldi, that is like the nephew to the Tamarli lord, who answers to an Armanli scaled lord. So you have like these layers of hierarchy that get more and more dangerous the higher up you go, but starts with this like weak-willed, kind of slick kobold who's totally on the take, just kind of like lives in comfort, doesn't really care what's going on as long as his uncle doesn't get involved, right? As long as his uncle stays out of business, then everybody is happy, but everyone just generally leaves this guy alone. I think that would be a fun NPC to have. We have some group patrons, a local elder, rogue leader, Master Kiprak. And I like one of the things I want to throw in here is the idea that there is a group, which is the 40 Fingers of Nakresh. And the 40 Fingers of Nakresh is actually a cult, except I think it might be a fun cult for the characters to join or be offered to join. They might not necessarily need to join. And we can have some inter-cult drama go on. But basically, the idea behind the 40 Fingers of Nakresh is they are a cult where theft is a religious act. And I think that's kind of neat. And I think Master Kiprak, who's this kobold, who believes that stealing as much as possible from the Dragon Empire is like a holy thing. So he's sort of like a priest. He's really nice, but their priestly order is theft. And I don't know that will come out right away. I think that will be something that kind of comes out. But Master Kiprak will be this really nice guy, but it's also like, hey, you could do this thing. We have Zoe Doomsinger, a pious goblin who wants to break the divinity of the Dragon Empire. And a freedom fighter, Thora Wormbait, a Knoll hunter who wants to shatter the structure of the Empire and save hundreds of thousands doomed to death in the Dragon's infernal wars. I don't know about the, having this religious leader. I think like you could have multiple religions that are here, right? And so maybe this is a religious leader, and we don't know who until the characters start to pick who they worship. That could be. Yeah, somebody brings up Father Chain from Lies of Loch Almora. Yeah, kind of. Although I think Father Chain isn't actually religious. In this case, they are truly religious. Yeah, Thora Wormbait is a very unfortunate name in the Dragon Empire. That is why they are named Wormbait, right? The 440 Fingers. 4 natural stone pillars on a rocky slope that breaks the heat during the day and the cold winds at night. A small tent town with perhaps 40 people, about 20 of which are local residents. It surrounds a large deep well with the only natural water for 100 miles in any direction. It is also the most common stopping point from the western cities to the nearby cities of the Dragon Empire. So it's on a popular route, but it is not a city. It is still out of the way enough that it is relatively small and relatively lawless, and outside of it's just powerful enough to matter, but just far enough away and small enough to be outside of the 1,000-year gaze of the Dragon Empire. So we picked some locations, and we'll probably add some. We have a watering hole, we have we have an apothecary, a mercenary company. There's several dining tents that include both vegetarian and meat-eating thing. We have a caravansary, a place where the people can rest and sleep. Somebody came up with, I think it was probably Scipio came up with caravansary of the Dragon Lord's representative. So, and then we have like the holy tent, right? And smithy and armory. We probably want to throw some NPCs around these locations. So we are going to, let's see, I'm going to switch over to my browser window here, and we're going to go to my random generator, and we're going to pick out some NPCs. Kellyon Forgekin, a carefree deep dwarf. I like that. So he's probably operating this smithy. I know that's a little stereotypical. We have Catelius Rat Talker, a suspicious elf. Might be running the livery. Let's see. We have Morris Gemboard, a humorous kobold, a member of the Koboldi. Gemboard is not a great name, but Morris could be Gemborn, I think would be a good name for them. And Morris Gemborn could be the kobold representative, the nephew. And we can figure out the other ones. Dog Smasher, that's no good for a game where you're not allowed to hurt domestic animals. Tyke Spineheart, an obnoxious human. I like that one for the mercenary company. I need an apothecary. Josiah Fairy Tongue. We're going to pick a different first name. Orthonia is a good one. Ignorant Shadow Elf. We're just going to say, I don't think they need to be ignorant. Quiet Shadow Elf. The dining tents. Walter Bullfall. I think we're going to have a vegetarian orc, the eagle-eyed orc, but not named Walter. Walner. We're going to go with Garrett. Garrett Bullfall is not a great name. Garrett Bullrush. The orc is going to be important, and I will share why when we talk about the intro scenario. Do we like Walter as a orc name because it's different? Garrett is fine too. It's not that, yeah. And let's see, we need somebody who runs the other Thomasane Gravel Glacier. Thomasane Ice Glacier. Ice Glacier is kind of redundant. Blue Glacier. Sinister Dragonborn, who runs the meat place. The Caravansary, who manages the Caravansary. Singleton Dograiser. Some of these names are bananas. Selvin, S-E-L-V-E-N. Selvin Dograiser. Call him Razortooth. A pious kobold. Runs the Caravansary. So we have a mixture of some scaled folk, some non-scaled folk that are kind of running the locations. I have a feeling that like any of the scaled folk that are operating out of this place probably wish they weren't here. So I think that can work. I think that some of these NPCs, like Sevlin Razortooth, might, believe strongly in the hierarchy, while others might not. So, you know, like Thorazane, you know, Thaumasane's kind of a weird way. Thorana Blue Glacier, a sinister dragonborn who runs one of the restaurants there, may not be, right? And can recognize, like, hey, you know, the corruption of the Dragon Empire is not even good for those that are in the better positions. So that way we can have kind of a good mix. So I think that can work. So that gives us some good locations. Some other locations I wanted to have in here is I definitely want to have a watchtower, which is built along one of the fingers. So there's 4 big like spires standing up, and there's 4 fingers. One of the tallest ones can actually overreach and see across the rocky hills and give a good visibility to see anybody that's coming and going. And so there's a big watchtower at the top is another feature that I wanted to have for the locations. I think that works. That works well. Let's see, the local dragon lords. Gizmiri, Adisha, Fiery Dragon, Bitek, Paris, the Golden Wind Dragon, and Mizar, Ibalan the Illustrious. So which of those, let's take a look at these dragon lords here, and say, like, which one kind of has more play. In fact, it's possible that there's a couple of different dragons in play here. So Gizmiri, the Red Province. I think this is a wasteland of red desert and bone. One thing that I want to look up, oh, I lost my mouse. Uh-oh, there we go. One thing I want to look up is look at the map. So campaigns, Dragon Empire. I took a snapshot of the map, and we had a little location for it. I should have marked it on the map, and I should print this out too. So we're going to drop this in here. So this is the general region where things are, and I had already decided where I was going to put it, and now I forgot. I had like a really good spot where I was going to put it. I think it's this mountain range south of Ashadar, like right at the base. And the cool bit is there's a ley line there. Here we go. 440 fingers. At least it's not the best in the world, but it marks it. It tells me where things are. So it's right at the base of this sort of set of mountains. It's actually near a ley line as well. So we have some really cool ways to kind of throw it in the center of stuff, but still have it be outside. It's 100 miles, more than 100 miles from any of the major cities. Each hex on this map is 24 miles. So 4 hexes is about 100 miles out. So they're more than 100 miles from anything notable. Yet they're sitting on top of a ley line. They are also in between 3, if we look at political boundaries, we can see that it's right at the edge of the Gizmiri, the Bitek, and the Mizar regions. So that means that it's like, it's kind of between, and so right here it's probably between Mizar and Gizmiri. And so let's look at, so Gizmiri is what? The red waste. So the south is a red waste, violent and outlawed. And then the Mizar, the provinces. Ibalan the Illustrious. Ibalan's brood world, and the world is his horde. After having forged pacts that founded the empire, he left the old lands of Maharat, his primary rival, and led the armies to victory under his benevolent wings. As the eldest dragonlord, Ibalan was also the first to die of old age. Unlike the other, he was prepared. So he's an undead dragon. I think an undead gold dragon whose hide is made of gem-studded scales. The Jambuka of Mizar are terrified of Ibalan and speak of him as the worst sort of devil. The dragon can revere him as the soul of wealth and duty, loyal beyond death. So I think that probably the local lord works under the Mizar, but recognizing that they're right on the edge of the Gizmiri as well. And so they're right at the edge of these two. And then up above is Bitek. Only one of 2 golden wind dragons, Parsis exotic, even among the Morza. Parsis works extremely well within the empire structure, and he delegates far less of his province's rule than the other Morzas. Parsis remains a tight-knit council called the Golden Circle to conduct the everyday work of Bitek. These circle members know his affinity for shapeshifting and disguising his identity. So there's probably people who believe in Bitek, even though Bitek is not quite super near. Actually, I could move, if I move it right up, I can put it right at that central point. Why don't I do that? Where did my big map go? I lost my big map. Yeah, unfortunately, I moved it. It should be right up at the base. So I'll do another cut of that map, and I'll move it. I shouldn't have saved it so quickly. That's a bummer. But that way, I'll be right at that stage of those 3 empires. I realize time is tight, so why don't I actually start doing some session notes? So under my session notes one, I have a template here. This is a brand new, fresh template. Let's see. Let me move over to Obsidian so we can look at that. And we are going to do the date, and this is our session 0. We're just going to call it Dragon Empire. And I don't know who the characters are yet, so we're going to keep that blank. The strong start. So after we've kind of set all of this up, what is the strong start? A cursed traveler comes to the characters. So somebody has been cursed. They've been hanging out in the wild. They've been cursed. They kind of fall off. They have like a weird sort of like, you know, almost like a woad that has formed on half the side of their face. And they have been cursed by something. And the curse, here's a secret and clue, the people of the 4 or 40 fingers have fallen under a curse, a mild curse, from drinking the water of the well. Strange symbols on both people and livestock. It's starting to affect folk. The curse is not a poison or a biological corruption. The water itself is cursed. A group of explorers went down the well but never returned. So let's see. The first thing will be the cursed traveler, and then meeting. I think I might be, because you know, sometimes I just like. Why doesn't it like this? Oh, it doesn't like. There we go. I really like the NPC Master Kipwreck, right? I think Master Kipwreck is really cool. Also a kobold, right? And Master Kipwreck, and then let's see. So the other NPC that's kind of important in this is the nephew, Morris Gemborn. And so I think a secret is Morris Gemborn is offering a reward of 25 gold pieces per to travel down the well, discover the source of the corruption of the curse, and end it. That is a good secret. Travel down the well. A particular tribe of isolated orcs known as the Ghost Walkers are completely subterranean and fanatical in their worship of the White Mother. If we go to our gods, where's the Pantheon? In the Pantheon, there is a bunch of like evil gods. The southern gods are the southern gods and the dragon gods are the ones most worshipped in the area. But some of the elven gods could be probably not the northern gods. But then and then of evil gods, there are a few that are being worshipped in the area. Here we go. The White Goddess. Goddess of bright pain, the sun's queen, the pale matriarch of blood and strength, patron goddess of the white shadows. I kind of like the pale matriarch. A White Mother is pretty good. Fanatical in their worship of the pale matriarch. They're also cannibals. Much of their society isn't known. They are reviled by all other orc tribes who know them. Because guess what's down in the well? Ghostwalkers. Ghostwalkers have erected oh, you want to see a cool? I did something. I was like, it'd be fun because I have oh no. Oh, what did I do? Oh, that was bad. There we go. There's my Dwarven Forge setup. And this is where the corruption is. So this is the river. As they follow along the river, they go here. They find like there's like a bridge, and there's a bunch of the White Walkers. Not White Walker. What are they called? I don't know. White Walkers is from Game of Thrones, so we'll probably call them something different. And they have this cursed altar to the White Mother here, and the altar is actually poisoning the area, cursing the area, and you can see this like cursed waterway that's flowing into the river, and Ghost Walkers, thank you, and dealing with that. So they can deal with the corruption there. And it may be really, yeah. So that's my fun little Dwarven Forge setup that I made yesterday for our setup. This Dwarven Forge setup, by the way, is available to patrons of Sly Flourish as a virtual tabletop background. So you can actually, let's see, you can actually get and I did it two-sided too. So you can get a version of this that is available as a ping that you can drop onto a virtual tabletop, either direction. If you like one way, you like the other, I put both in there so that you can flip it. And you can drop that in a virtual tabletop and run yourself a little fun virtual tabletop game with some Dwarven Forge. Available to patrons of Sly Flourish. All right, what else do I need for my notes? So the locations, we have the waterway, the underground river. And I need a Dyson map for this. Let's go to Dyson maps. One thing I think is really interesting, I think Dyson is like one of the top heroes of this hobby. And here's a really interesting thing. The new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide has a bunch of maps in it. I haven't seen it yet, but what I've heard is it has a bunch of maps, and those maps are done by Dyson, which means that the designers of Wizards of the Coast feel like the best maps that give you a good range of like how to draw your own maps and how to draw maps that are universal for lots of different things. Have used the map style that you can get 1,200 maps for free, right? That's fantastic. So I am looking for an underground river-y kind of place. Hey, look at that. Sometimes you just look and you find it. This looks really good. I want a blank one, right? Perfect. And I can decide like which of these chambers is the cursed chambery bit. But I think that this will work nicely. There's obviously this old temple here, but we're going to just save that. And we will save it to my desktop. And I'm going to print a copy of that. And I don't know how far we're going to get with this today. But see, now I've got a map. Like, you know, now I feel good. You have a map, I feel like I'm ready to go. Lena Scaling says, Dwarven Forge has a campaign on GameFound right now. They do, and I'm going to talk about that on the talk show, which I'm severely late for. Okay, let's hammer out some other secrets. Oh, so orcs. Let's take a look. So monster-wise, tell me they have orcs. You can hear my orcs. Yay. Orcs are CR1 half with 25 hit points. So we're not going to have a lot of orcs, right? Orcs are super dangerous at first level. Look at that, 9 damage on a hit. Probably going to throw, let's see, let's you know what we're going to do? So we're going to grab some NPCs, because orcs are too hard at first level, even for Tales of the Valiant folk. So we're going to also grab the good old bandit. So we're going to have orc bandits, Ghostwalker bandits. They are on page 363. And the cult fanatic, my favorite stat block, is really brutal. Oh, so we have cultists. The cultists are better than bandits. Then those are 364. And we will call her the White Sister, who's a cult fanatic on page 365. But I'm probably going to alter this. 60 hit points is a lot of hit points. And the cult fanatic does 2 unholy bolt attacks that do 10 damage each. We're probably going to have that to like 5 damage each. We'll have the hit points and have the damage because it's just too hard. It's too hard at first level, but we'll see. Got to be nice at first level. I know, like, I'm rolling down the cults, you know, the cult ideas. Maybe she was wounded by the previous people or something like that, but I think she's just too hardcore. 60 hit points and 20 points of damage per round is really high. And CR2 is already high for first level characters, like way high for CR2 characters. So I think we will stick with those. Treasure. So here's an interesting thing. We're going to use the treasure parcels from the Game Master's Guide because I want to see it work. And there is a sort of a treasure table, treasure by tier. Here it is. So here's the bundle, and the bundle is the total treasure bundle for 1st to 3rd level. And I can do a little checkbox in my notes for common magic item, 1d4 first. I'm not going to type all this out, but essentially I'm going to try using the DMG or the Game Master's Guide as the guide for giving out items instead of using my normal 5th edition one, just to try it out and see. I may hate it, but I'll roll all this up and I'll add it in my notes as we go. I don't think I'm going to need it all right now, but I can basically build a 1st to 3rd level checklist, and as they level up, I can check off the stuff that they've got until they've picked up everything that they, until they picked up all the stuff that they're expected to have picked up. So we'll figure that out. Any other secrets? So I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 secrets. What are some other secrets? So I think some of the secrets would be about the Dragon Empire, like little bits about the Dragon Empire, like the 440 Fingers is named after a demon prince known as the 40 Finger, as Nakrash, named after a long forgotten cult. I'll switch back to my Obsidian screen here. A long forgotten cult called the 40 Fingers of Nakrash. Nakrash is a long dead deity of theft and dishonorable acts, but it's not really dead and it's not really dishonorable if the whole realm is dishonorable. OFF exists right at the boundaries of 3 dragon regions, Mizar and Gizmiri. And we can do 3 secrets for the Dragon Empire here. Gizmiri is a wasteland of red desert, sand and bone, and the remnants of entire armies of Kandaria. And most of it could easily be considered the western part of the Red Wastes. That's good enough. Let's see, not Hakrash. Not Maharat. Let's see. So Ibalan, the illustrious ruler of Mizar. Province nearest to the border with Nuraya Natal is a place of burial and raids, since there's no peace between the River Kings and the Maharati. This is a good one. It's a big-ass secret. And then the last one is Batek. Batek is home to captured flying city of Sikrim, named after the Cloud City. Let's see. Province of the Book. There's a lot about Batek here. It's like a highly magical realm. So we're going to try to summarize this. Highly magical realm of ruined flying castles, magical collegiates, I guess magical colleges, right? And what? And the Golden Council, the Golden Circle of Parsis, the Hidden. That's pretty good. So I think that's, I don't know. I think that's good enough. I don't know who the characters are. I have enough for a session 0. I've got my map. I printed my map. I think we're good to go. So I'm going to print my notes. Always a little bit. Oh no, I couldn't print it. Why didn't it print? Oh, you know why? Maybe it doesn't like these things. Let's cut that out. And let's see if it prints now. I will have learned something if my little script doesn't print checkboxes. That did it. So it doesn't like little checkboxes apparently. All right, print. So I've got that. And I got a few other things I got to get ready as well, but it's going to be pretty lightweight session 0. I'm not too worried about it. Friends, I hope you enjoyed our first episode of our Lazy GM prep for our Dragon Empire campaign. If you like this and you like the work that I do, please consider subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It is absolutely free to sign up. You get a free adventure generator for signing up, and you get a weekly RPG-related email, including links to all of the other work that I do all over the web. You can also become a patron of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of things, including the show notes that I do for this game, the campaign source books that I do for this, like the campaign notes are all available, plus a whole bunch of free adventures. Not free, part of the Patreon. Whole bunch of adventures, whole bunch of scenarios, whole bunch of source books, whole bunch of tips, tricks, tools to help you run your games. Lots of stuff that you get for being a patron of Sly Flourish. Access to the Lazy GM Discord server, and you help me directly put on shows like this. So thank you for that. And you can pick up any of my books, including Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, the Lazy DM's Workbook, the Lazy DM's Companion, Forge of Foes, and others at the Sly Flourish bookstore. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.